Today, class, we're going to learn about graphics in processing. This is arguably the most important lesson in this class, so be sure to pay attention and take frequent notes. Processing doesn't use the same coordinate system that you use in mathematics. In processing, the origin is at the upper left corner of the screen. The y-coordinate increases as you move down the screen, and the x-coordinate increases as you move to the right. To draw a point to the screen, use the point method. The point method takes only two arguments, the x and y coordinates of the point you want to draw. To draw a line, you use the line method. The line method takes four arguments, the x and y coordinates of the first point and the x and y coordinates of the second point. The order of the 2 points doesn't matter, but the order of the coordinates does. To draw an ellipse or rectangle, you use the ellipse and rect methods, respectively. Each takes four arguments, but what the arguments represent changes depending on your ellipse mode and rect mode. In center mode, the first two arguments are the x and y coordinates of the center of the shape, and the next two coordinates are the width and height of the shape, respectively. Ellipses are by default drawn in center mode. In corner mode, the first two arguments represent the x and y coordinates of the upper left corner of the shape, and the next two coordinates represent the width and height as before. By default, all rectangles are drawn in corner mode. Corners mode is a lot like the line method. You specify two sets of x, y coordinates, which represent opposite corners of the shape. Which corners they represent depends on the actual coordinates you provide. In radius mode, the first two arguments are the x and y coordinates of the center of the shape, as in center mode. However, instead of the width and height, you specify the radius parallel to the x-axis and the radius parallel to the y-axis. To draw a triangle, you use the triangle method. The triangle method takes 6 arguments, which are the x and y coordinates of each of the 3 points. Because it is a triangle, the order of the points do not matter, but again, the order of the coordinates does. The quad method is similar to the triangle method, except it draws a quadrilateral. It takes 8 arguments. At this point their function should be obvious, but it should be noted that unlike the line and triangle functions, for the quad function, the order of the points does matter. The points have to go in order around the shape. If you do not go in that order, you could end up with something else entirely. The arc method draws a portion of an ellipse. The first 4 arguments are identical to those of the ellipse method, and as such they are affected by the ellipse mode. The last 2 arguments specify the starting and ending angle in radians. In case you are not familiar with radians, take a look at this chart. After you have studied it for a moment, forget it, because processing lives in some bizarro land where everything is upside down and radians run backwards. When actually drawn, the arc looks like a slice of pizza, drawn from the starting angle to the ending angle. Note that the starting angle has to be less than the ending angle. If you go the other way around, processing will get confused and won't draw anything. When a shape is drawn to the screen, it has 2 components, the outline and the interior. You can specify the color of the outline using the stroke method, and you can specify the color of the interior using the fill method. Alternatively, you can use no stroke to omit the outline, or no fill to omit the interior. Note that lines and points only consist of strokes, so the fill method will have no effect on them. When working with strokes, you can specify the thickness of the stroke using the stroke weight method. The stroke weight method takes a single argument, which specifies the number of pixels of thickness in the stroke. You cannot specify a stroke weight of 0. For that, you need to use the no stroke method. There are a few ways to specify the color. The first is with a simple number from 0 to 255, representing a shade of gray. Black is 0, and white is 255. Anything more than 255 or less than 0 is simply white or black. You can also specify the color using an RGB color value, which is produced by calling the color method. The color method takes 3 arguments. The first is the red value, the second is the green value, and the third is the blue value. If you haven't worked with additive colors before, here's a crash course. Red and green and blue are the primary colors. To get yellow, you mix red and green. To get cyan, you mix blue and green. And to get magenta, you mix red and blue. To get white, you mix all three. Finally, when working with RGB color values, you can specify a fourth term, the alpha value. The alpha value determines how see-through an object is. A value of 255 is totally opaque, while a value of 0 is totally transparent.